I'm 21 with this empire.
Tanya stepped right up into the CEO position.
They got guns to my head. How am I gonna get out of this?
Yeah. Get the money.
Joker Still Smirking at Hard Time by Cody Cornell Smith. February 15, 2003, 5 a.m. A cross-dressing criminal mastermind called Joker lived up to his nickname yesterday by smiling through his sentencing when a federal judge gave him 36 years for murder and robbery. Looking more like he was up before Judge Frederick Block to answer to a misdemeanor, Vere Joker Padmore, 30, sauntered into Brooklyn federal court, let out a laugh and waved to his wife and 2-year-old son. For 10 years, the Joker had headed up a violent robbery gang that terrorized Brooklyn by targeting jewelry stores and drug dealers with the help of 2 corrupt cops. Block accepted a plea deal that Padmore hammered out with federal prosecutors in September 2001 to avoid a possible life sentence. He pleaded guilty to 3 murders and leading a violent robbery ring that committed more than 100 robberies and kidnappings in the 1990s. He had a cult of guys who would unquestionably follow him, said Assistant U.S. Attorney Jack Smith, who previously called Padmore the most intelligent and dangerous robbery crew leader he'd ever encountered.
What up, though, everybody? Peace. How you be? I appreciate you coming out and rocking. Of course, when you rocking with me, you understand me? And I dig this here, man. Today we're gonna talk about Joker Padmore, man. Vere. Why ain't nobody on the internet talking about Vere? You feel me? Dude, solid as a rock. You know what I'm saying? And I popped his name in on YouTube just to see if anybody. I was really looking for news clippings of him or whatnot. Didn't find any, of course, but I didn't see anybody doing any videos on him either. You feel me? Like, I follow Crown TV, I follow Pop a lot. I didn't see nobody putting in no work on dog, so I'm gonna let you know what you've been missing right here. You heard me? The Padmore crew was serious. Serious cats, yo. You heard? Dig this here. Shout out to Brooklyn, because that's where we at. You heard? Quick little write-up. The Padmore crew, who took its name from its fearsome leader, Vere Padmore, a cross-dressing criminal mastermind known as Joker, who said to have headed up a violent robbery gang that terrorized Brooklyn for 10 years by targeting jewelry stores and drug dealers like Ralph Lewis, a marijuana salesman who dealt in weight primarily out of state though, and with the help of 2 rogue cops based out of Brooklyn's 77th precinct, former officers Anthony Trotman and Jamil Jordan. See, so listen, he had the police on his team. It seemed like everybody that really, it's just like, shout out to my beloved Justice Allah, man. Peace to the 5% nation of gods and earth, man. It's just like Justice say, man. If ever you should be in the streets and you get to a point where you got $1 million or better in cash or whatnot, assets, and you ain't been caught yet, you working with the police, if not for them. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no way around it and ain't no doubt about it. You feel me? But Vere had the police on his team. Now dig this here, man. Like I was just talking about the police being on the team, with the NYPD being the largest force in the nation, it's no wonder it's no stranger to scandal within the force. With the crews like the Buddy Boys, who robbed drug dealers out of the same Brooklyn precinct, or the Moore Boys, who divided up stolen cash in an abandoned coffin factory, or even the Dirty 30 from Harlem's 30th precinct, where more than 24 officers were charged with raiding drug dens for profit. It may seem that these officers were merely following suit.
Brooklyn officers accused as brazen robbers by William K. Rashbaum. January 24, 2001. 2 police officers were part of a brazen Brooklyn gang, federal authorities said yesterday, holding up drug dealers, plotting armed robberies of businesses and even using a patrol car and police raid jackets for a robbery scheme. The 2 partners, who were assigned to the 77th precinct in Bedford-Stuyvesant, became so reckless, according to court papers unsealed yesterday, that they conspired to murder a fellow officer, an accusation sure to send shockwaves through the force. The target of the conspiracy, a veteran detective, testified in an unrelated case in 1997, contradicting the officers' statements and leaving them open to federal perjury charges, the court papers said. In the months after the detectives' testimony, the pair, using a mobile computer in their police car, tracked down the detective's home address and drove by with an accomplice in tow to plan his murder, the court papers said. They never followed through, but the pair's testimony eventually caught up to them last June, officials said, when the police department accused them of lying to federal prosecutors and, after an administrative trial, fired them. The accusations revealed in court papers yesterday echoed a notorious corruption scandal in the same police precinct 14 years ago, when a dozen officers known as the Buddy Boys were charged with robbing drug dealers and other crimes. The latest case did not appear to be part of a wider pattern, federal prosecutors and police officials said, but the criminal behavior detailed in the complaint was as serious as has surfaced in the department in years. The case raises questions about how the two officers could have operated undetected. The court papers say they robbed drug dealers in 3 boroughs, and one officer left work early one day in 1997 to take part in a $500,000 jewelry store robbery on Long Island. The firing of the officers last summer, after they were accused of lying about a gun arrest, was unrelated to the crimes with which they have been charged, police officials said. One of the former officers, Anthony Trotman, 35, was charged in a January 11 federal indictment with the jewelry store robbery, but federal prosecutors and the department's Internal Affairs Bureau have been investigating for more than 3 years. After the indictment, Mr. Trotman, who had been on the force for 11 years, began cooperating with federal authorities. The information he provided led to a criminal complaint unsealed yesterday against his former partner, Daniel Jordan, 28. Mr. Jordan is charged with conspiring to commit robbery and plotting the murder of the detective with Mr. Trotman. He is also accused of running an elaborate credit card fraud scheme after he was fired, the court papers said. Yesterday, neither the lawyer for Mr. Jordan, Frank Handelman, nor the lawyer representing Mr. Trotman, Valerie Amsterdam, returned calls seeking comment. Mr. Jordan was arraigned before Magistrate Judge Marilyn D. Go in Federal District Court in Brooklyn yesterday and ordered held without bail. In the same courthouse, the trial of a man, who prosecutors say was also part of the gang, James Woodard, was underway. Jack Smith, an assistant United States attorney, told jurors in Mr. Woodard's trial that they would hear testimony from Mr. Trotman. As a police officer, Mr. Smith said, Mr. Trotman robbed drug dealers and, on August 1, 1997, helped carry out the 36-second armed robbery at the H.L. Gross jewelry store in Garden City. It was the gang's second trip to the store. 4 months earlier, without Mr. Trotman, 4 men used the same tactics to smash the shop's glass display cases and grab as many watches and pieces of jewelry as they could carry, officials said. Mr. Jordan did not take part in those robberies, the court papers said, but one of the other men gave him an expensive silver Tag Heuer watch from the store. Officials said the gang conducted surveillance of their robbery targets, usually chose days when the weather was bad to slow the police response, and used a Lexus as a getaway car. The 2 policemen, who officials said began working together as partners in January 1997, were often on duty when they met with other gang members in a park in Bedford-Stuyvesant, court papers said. These other gang members included Vere Padmore, described as the ringleader, and Francisco Lake, known as Psycho. In 1997, the complaint said, after learning about a Jamaican drug dealer from a co-conspirator, the 2 officers used an unmarked police car to follow him and pull him over. Wearing their service pistols, they showed their badges, searched his car, and stole $8,000 in cash. On another occasion, they used an unmarked police car and the same tactics to rob a drug dealer in the Bronx, taking $2,100, the complaint said. They left him handcuffed in the car. In an unsuccessful robbery attempt, the complaint said, the officers followed a Brooklyn nightclub owner who they believed also sold drugs, hoping to rob him of the club's proceeds and his drug money. They followed the man home in a marked police car, and once there, outfitted 2 gang members with police raid jackets. The 2 men, carrying guns, entered the club owner's home under the pretense that a burglar alarm had gone off, the complaint said. While the owner's wife went upstairs to get him, the pair searched the house for money but found none, the complaint said, and left before the man came downstairs. The complaint charging Mr. Jordan which also served as an affidavit in support of a search warrant executed yesterday at his home at 497 East 34th Street in Brooklyn, described the activities of the robbery gang. It said the gang was led by Mr. Padmore, known as Joker, who is now a fugitive. The papers also detailed a conversation between Mr. Trotman and Mr. Jordan that the FBI secretly recorded and videotaped in Mr. Trotman's home. He was wearing an electronic monitoring bracelet, part of bail restrictions set after his arrest in the jewelry store robbery. During the January 18th conversation, Mr. Jordan, apparently afraid that he was being recorded, seemed suspicious, responding over and over with aha to Mr. Trotman's queries about past crimes, according to a partial transcript in the complaint. At one point, he whispered to Mr. Trotman, even though no one else was in the room, and, when Mr. Trotman began talking about what he said was their discussion about whacking the detective, Mr. Jordan said, "I don't want to talk about that," and turned on the television. On the videotape, the complaint said, Mr. Jordan could be seen wearing the silver tag hooer, which was later found in his apartment.
At the time, Assistant U.S. Attorney Todd Harris, who prosecuted the case in Brooklyn federal court, called the Padmore crew both violent and murderous. And on a different occasion, Assistant U.S. Attorney Jack Smith said Padmore had a cult of guys who unquestionably followed him, and also called him the most intelligent and dangerous robbery crew leader he'd ever encountered. Now that says something when you're working in the nation's largest force. When you're working for the nation's largest force, or within it, or within the ranks or whatever. You know what I'm saying? That says something. I wonder why nobody's talking about Vere Padmore. That's interesting. That's not a name that I've heard regularly. But anyway, with dozens of crew members, of whom are said to have killed at least 11 people and robbed hundreds more behind bars, including Trotman and Jordan, formerly of the 77th Precinct, and Vere Padmore, who is now serving 36 years in prison after pleading guilty to a 1997 triple murder, where after jumping bail, he dressed as a woman and spent 2 years on the run before being captured in 2001. It would seem Brooklyn may have seen the last of the Padmore crew. Or has it? Nobody knows. But maybe you do, man. Jump into the comment box. Let me know what you know, man. This has been another episode, man. You know who you rocking with, man. Young Go Ahead in the building. I appreciate everybody that's rocking. I appreciate everybody that's stopping. You know we always keep it popping this way. Respect. LOE. Loyalty over envy, nigga.